How Not to Use Paratroopers. Episode 1. And here we have 6 paratrooper divisions ready to do a drop. Now this is going to be a practice drop, just to put on a show for Comrade Stalin and the people of Moscow. We've got 6 paratrooper divisions right here. We have transport aircraft right here at the airfield. We have our general in command, and he is a paratrooper expert. Everything is set up, and as everyone who uses paratroopers knows, you can always drop on friendly territory just to move troops around. And so we press the button and execute the drop. Oh dear, what has happened here? The paratroopers have been shot to pieces. Were they shot apart by German aircraft? No. Were they shot to pieces by defenders at the site? No, the state is completely under Soviet control. But Vasily forgot an important thing. Moscow has level 5 State AA, and State AA shoots at all paratroopers regardless of national ownership. That's right, Vasily has killed several thousand paratroopers by dropping them on friendly territory with State AA in place. That is not how to use paratroopers. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Counterfactual Gaming. And today I want to give everyone a brief tutorial on how to use paratroopers. And I was inspired to do a video tutorial on paratroopers because I watched Feedback Gaming's video about things that he would like to see that are quality of life problems in Hearts of Iron. And he pointed out quite correctly that paratroopers have some tooltip and UI issues that are kind of problematic. And so I want to just go through and talk about how you can use paratroopers and give you some basic steps. So for very experienced players, this is probably not going to be that great of a video, but if you've struggled to use paratroopers before, or if you're confused about how to use them, this video is going to be right up your alley. But before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that if you like what you see here, go ahead and click on the like and sub buttons and leave a comment down below with all of your paratrooper questions. I can be sure to get back to you. I may not have a good answer, but I will have an answer of some kind for you. And with that, let's talk about paratroopers. Alright, so you want to use paratroopers. If you're going to use paratroopers, the most important thing you have to learn is what can actually drop with paratroopers. The important piece of UI information you need to know about paratroopers, it's this little icon right here, the little parachute icon with a check mark. If a division does not have that icon, it cannot be dropped as a paratrooper formation. So what do we need in order to do paratroopers? Well, we need paratrooper battalions. That's these guys right here. They got the little paratrooper icon on them in NATO counters. And in non-NATO counters, they just have the green parachute icon right there that you can see. If you have any other line battalions other than these, your division will not be able to drop. Which, just so we're clear on this, if I just throw some line AA in this division and I save it, if we take a look here, this division cannot be dropped. But if we go back to the template and we remove it and save it, boom, checkmark comes back. Support companies are a mixed bag. While you need and must have paratroopers and only paratroopers in your line battalions to do an airdrop, so while you are required to have paratrooper battalions and only paratrooper battalions as your line battalions to have a droppable paratrooper division, the support companies are different. Some support companies can be dropped, other support companies can't be dropped. Let's take a look at them. I'm going to get as many of them as I can fit into the UI, and we're going to look at which ones can and can't be dropped. So if we look at this list of support companies, and you will see that the ones that can be dropped with paratroopers have, again, the parachute icon with the check mark on it. So support AA, support AT, support artillery, That kind of stuff, no problem. It can drop. Regular engineers can drop. Motorized recon can drop, although I don't know why you would add motorized recon to it. Military police, signals, all those different kinds of things can be para-dropped. But you'll notice that some of these can't be dropped. It shouldn't surprise anyone that any of the super heavy tanks can't be dropped. I know that's going to disappoint a lot of players. They wanted to have teleporting super heavy tanks, but the game won't let you do it. Light flame tanks can paradrop, but medium and heavy flame tanks cannot paradrop. You can drop cavalry recon, motorized recon, and armored car recon, but you cannot drop regular recon. But there's one support company I would like to draw your attention to. There is the Airborne Light Armor support company, which is specifically tailored to paratrooper divisions, and it is opened up via the Airborne Armor doctrine in Paratroopers. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but when you're thinking about making paratrooper divisions, you can create light tanks that can drop with paratroopers, and they don't have to be flamethrower tanks. They can have like real light tank guns on them. I also need to point out to new players that paratroopers are just like Marines and mountain troops. They are capped in their number of special forces battalions by the special forces cap. Now, if you don't know what your special forces cap is, you can go over here to division overview. That's with the army button over here. This gives you a complete overview of your army, tell you how many divisions you have, how many battalions you have, but it also has the special forces icon right here. Zoom in so you can see it clearly, but this special forces icon will tell you what your current total number of special forces battalions are and how much you are actually using. And it will give you an indication of what your cap is. As you can see here, I'm using 253 out of 255 possible special forces battalions. Now that's battalions, not divisions. So I have this division right here. Each one of these that I create requires 5 special forces cap. That's why I can afford this entire 85 division paratrooper army, because the Red Army is huge. It's got 5,300 battalions spread out into 474 divisions. And for those who aren't sure how that translates into numbers, I have a 4 million man army. So I've just got lots of special forces cap to use. I can create swarms of paratroopers. Now, when we talk about division templates for paratroopers, I want to provide a basic template for you to use. There are many different ways you can build paratrooper divisions. I've even seen people use simple 1 battalion paratroopers to do crazy stuff. I've seen people use 1 battalion paratroopers with a full list of support companies. I've seen people drop really fat 40 with paratrooper divisions. But for you new players out there, I'm going to give you a basic template that you can use that should work in most situations that you're going to be using paratroopers in. We want to keep something in mind. Big fat paratrooper divisions eat up as much cap as multiple smaller paratrooper divisions, but a division can only drop on 1 tile. So when I talk later on about dropping multiple divisions on multiple tiles in order to isolate and surround enemy forces, a skinny division, like what you're seeing on the screen here, has more granularity to missions than if I made this like a big giant 40 width division or 50 width or 80 width. So I'm going to argue that, especially for new players, but even for some experienced players, we want to go skinny and use 10 width paratrooper divisions. I'm also going to tell you that you probably don't need most of the support companies here. I know that field hospitals provide a benefit to paratroopers. You can see it right here, right there in the tooltip. You can see that the paratroopers will get extra recovery rate. I do understand that there are useful support companies in here, but I'm going to tell you that most of these support companies are not super useful. Support artillery can be great in some paratrooper situations, but a lot of these are just kind of meh. But the one thing you will want to use is you want the airborne light armor. And I want to show you why. I want you to look at the stats of this paratrooper division that I've created. Notice that it has an armor rating of 22.4. Now, that doesn't seem very good, but I want you to take a look at something. Now, I've tagged over to Germany. This is a save from a live stream game that I did a couple of weeks ago when this video comes out. So this is how the AI constituted its armies. And it's November of 41, and if we take a look at these divisions, you're going to notice that typical German divisions only have a piercing of 12. This division, piercing of 11. This division, piercing of 11. What you're not going to see are lots of enemy divisions with high piercing values because the AI does not prioritize AT guns very well. So if we tag back to the Soviets and we look at the template that I'm showing you, you see that what I've given you here is a template to create a teleporting space marine. This paratrooper division cannot be fully pierced by the Germans it's dropping directly on. And we're going to accomplish that using light tanks. So let's talk about that. So when we talk about putting light tanks in paratrooper divisions, there's generally two ways that you can do it. Some players are going to want to just use off-the-shelf light tanks. Now, I'm using the Soviets here as my example because the Soviets do start with a lot of light tanks. These light tanks can be used for recon purposes without any modification, without spending XP, or you can use them in your paratroopers. They're not really optimized for paratrooper use. This is the way you want to go if you just want to get stuff into your paratrooper divisions. If we want to optimize light tanks for paratroopers, I want to propose to you something easy like this. Now, this paratrooper tank is specifically designed for use in paratrooper formations. How do you know it's tailored for use in paratrooper formations? Well, there's a couple of clues that will immediately tell you that this is not a tank designed for driving around on land. It has a max speed of 4 kph. It's very slow. It stacks a ridiculous amount of armor. It also uses a MEO that grants an armor bonus. It has multiple fuel drums, armor skirts, and sloped armor to give it even more armor. Since I'm playing the Soviets, I'm using the welded armor module. If you don't have the chromium for that, you can always use cast armor. And it's using diesel in order to get more reliability because it doesn't need the speed. It's also using an improved small cannon, so it at least has some piercing and some hard and soft attack, and it's using kind of a minimal turret. This kind of tank is unsuitable for armored warfare that requires speed, but paratroopers don't need speed. They just teleport via aircraft to a location and drop. And I want to point something else out as well. My skinny paratrooper division here has an armor rating hovering in 22 to 23, but it also has a piercing of 26. Now, that doesn't seem very good, but if we tag over to Germany, let's see what it can pierce. Now, remember, divisions in the field often do not have full equipment or the best equipment. So if we look at this random German panzer division that I've just selected. This is an actual AI German division on the front line that's been fighting me. You can see that it's short its quota of medium tanks and light tanks, so it actually only has an armor rating of 16.5. If I select another panzer division, this one has an even lower armor value. And if we take a look at what the template is supposed to have, you can see that the template's supposed to have an armor rating of 49.5, or the light tank division is supposed to have an armor rating of 23.6. Due to equipment issues, these medium tank divisions might not actually have an armor rating of 49.5, and our paratroopers can almost completely pierce German light armor templates. So by creating a dedicated light tank for paradrop attacks, you can have a piercing rating that might actually be useful. This is also why we use airdropped light tanks and not flame tanks and engineering support company, because I could stack armor on this all day long, but in order for it to be a flame tank, it has to have a flamethrower, which means it will never have, like, its piercing is 0. It'll have less piercing than the paratrooper battalions will have. If I use my dedicated paratrooper tank, I'm at least giving my divisions some piercing to use against enemy forces. Now, to be clear, I could also add close support gun, or I could add a high velocity gun if I wanted to tailor it more to piercing or to soft attack. Okay, so if we're going to talk about how to actually execute a paradrop, we need to address the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is that ordering all 85 paratrooper divisions to drop on a single tile is not the way to do it. A terrible idea. The reason it's not the way to do it isn't clear, because if we're looking at the tooltip right now, it says I can execute this order. Generally, there are 2 reasons that a paradrop will not successfully execute, even if you have the green check mark on the battle plan. Problem number 1 is insufficient transport aircraft. Now, you see how I've got 600 transport aircraft at this airfield, where I have all 85 Soviet paratrooper divisions tied to a single battle plan order. And that is nowhere near enough aircraft to move all 85 divisions in a single paradrop. If I want to actually drop 85 paratrooper divisions using these 600 planes, I can't just say, hey, here's 85 divisions, drop on a single tile. It's not going to work. But there's also a secondary problem that can happen when you are trying to set up a paradrop order. And for that, we're going to have to take a look at the supply screen for a second. As you can see here, we don't have the greatest supply on this tile where the airfield and the paratroopers are. And just remember, the paratroopers have to be at an airfield. If we look at our supply tooltip, we can tell that our supply status is only 37%. Why does this matter? Well, this matters because there are times where if you overstack paratroopers on a single airfield and a single tile, and that airfield is not positioned well with a supply hub, as you can see here that there's a supply hub over here. This supply hub is already overtaxed. It's several tiles away. We're not using motorized supply. These guys are not supplied correctly. At a certain threshold of lack of supply, paratroopers will not execute. There's a third consideration, which I can't show you right at the moment, but if the org of the paratrooping divisions is too low and it's not increasing up to max, the paratrooper order will not execute. So instead of dropping all 85 divisions on a single tile and failing, you should instead adopt the 2-division drop plan. This is the same stack of 85 divisions, and this cluster of arrows are all 2-division drop orders. They're all tied to the same general. That's because this is my paratrooper guy. And when I execute this plan, these divisions are going to attempt to execute every single one of these initial drop orders. This also ensures that we're going to be trying to take all of these tiles at roughly the same time. Doing it this way will ensure that the German divisions have nowhere to flee to. It will also ensure that any paratroopers that happen to drop on top of a German division that they may not be able to defeat will have other paratrooper divisions that can support their attack, or they can withdraw to friendly controlled tiles and not be completely destroyed. So, in order to make this paradrop order work properly, we're going to make sure we've got all of the divisions under our commando/paratrooper guy. Not every country starts with a commando, but if you do start with a commando, go ahead and select the paratrooper ability because it's going to give you the gliders command, which we're about to use. If you don't have a general with the commando trait, you can still do paratrooper attacks, but you will not have access to the gliders order. Now, I know that this looks stupid. You're saying to yourself, well, that's ridiculous. He has 85 divisions under his command. He's well past his command limit. But what's going to happen is we're only going to use him to execute this glider order and to execute this battle plan. Once these divisions have executed their attack, we can always reorganize them under other generals so that we can actually have generals with actual command talent leading these forces. I just want them all under this guy to execute the order at the same time. So will this order execute even when the last order didn't? Well, let's find out. I'm going to slow the game down to a little bit so that we can watch this happen. All right, I'm executing the order and we're unpausing. Look at that. Okay, you see the paradrops happening? You notice they're not all executing at the same time. They dropped in a series of sequences. Why does that happen? Well, let me show you why that happens. If we go back to the source of this order, remember, I've only got 600 transport aircraft here. 600 transport aircraft cannot move all 85 divisions in a single drop, so they can't execute a single drop order. But if you have multiple drop orders with just 2 divisions on them, the transport aircraft will execute as many of those battle plans as they have capacity to do so. They will then fly back to their airbase, execute the next series of orders, so on and so forth. So if we go back to that save again and get ready to execute that order, we're going to do this. We're going to do it slow, but as we execute this order, I want to show you how to micro it a little bit. Because you notice that as soon as that drop happened, divisions started wandering around willy-nilly because they're under a battle planner. We don't necessarily want that to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and punch my gliders order, use that command power. We're going to execute the battle plan, and we're going to start the drop. Okay. We've dropped on targets. We're going to do another drop order. Okay. We're going to pause for a second, and we're going to start deleting those battle plans. The ones that are being spontaneously created. I'm not talking about the Paradrop battle plans. I'm just talking about the regular ones. Why am I doing that? Well, it's going to discourage these divisions from just wandering around aimlessly because they think they need to conform to a battle plan. We're going to let this continue to drop. Okay, we've got more drops. Again, I'm going to pause. We're going to delete the battle plans. Now, you'll notice that in some cases, we are dropping on enemy divisions. And our stats aren't that great because this is a paradrop order. Because we took the combat insertion doctrine, we are significantly nerfing German org every time we are doing these paradrops. Okay, boom, 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 boom. All right, hold on. Now, as you notice, as these individual micro battle plans start adding up, you see divisions are trying to move to the battle plan order. So again, we want to go ahead and delete all of these micro battle plans. And we want to let them, yeah, see, there they go again. They're forming again, but that means divisions are trying to wander around. There they go. They drop again. Can't believe I just researched log company too. And we're going to keep doing that and also ordering them to halt if they're moving in a direction that I don't like. You'll also notice that some of them are building battle plans that are covering the entire front because they've now connected with the Soviet front lines. So we want to make sure we delete that. Because if we don't delete that, some of these divisions are going to try to wander over here to Smolensk and Mogilev and Vitebsk, which is not what I want them to be doing. We're also going to begin microing these divisions since they don't have any other opposition. We're going to add them to this tile and start an attack on those divisions. That seizes control of that. We close that out. And we can go ahead and order these divisions to start attacking here. So we can finish the encirclement and kill these German formations. You'll notice that the Germans are at least trying to counterattack. We want to make sure we close off all possible escape routes so that we can annihilate these guys. These guys can be ordered to attack into those tiles to support that landing. Look, we got another drop. We're going to clean that out. We're going to clean that out. As the drops continue, we've got a drop at Königsberg. Let's go ahead and execute a support attack there so those paratroopers can break them. All right. There's a couple of orders that are still waiting to complete, as you can see. But this worked a lot better than trying to grab all 85 divisions and just drop them in a single paratrooper order. That doesn't work very well. This works much better. And you saw very clearly the transports kept allocating to different drop orders so that we could drop in sequence. It's not a perfect uniform drop, but this is much better than what we were trying earlier. And while I could play through this, I just want to note again that the Germans are not even close to piercing these guys. If we just run this real fast, you can see we're going to destroy those German divisions. We're going to destroy these German divisions. And the only thing we didn't take was Königsberg. And that's because that was at the very limit of where I did my drops, and the Germans were able to put some reinforcements in there. But you'll notice we've surrounded and destroyed multiple German divisions. Look at that. Last of the Germans here are destroyed. And I want to point something out. I didn't actually use any armor or order a battle plan to support this. This was just with the Paradrop. Had I been doing this for real, let me delete these orders to show you this. Had I been doing this for real, I would have had fast movers or armored divisions pushing in to meet up with the paratroopers, and I would have also had the infantry divisions doing a general push forward. But this Paradrop illustrates the value of paratroopers and how to execute them properly. And I didn't even micro it well. I kept them all under Vasily here. Had I really been concerned, I would have taken divisions and grouped them and put them under other generals once their Paradrop orders executed. Now, this was an excessively large and somewhat abusive paratrooper order. In real life, I wouldn't have done it quite this way, because as you can tell, the AI really doesn't understand how to defeat it. And also, I've become rather famous for dropping 80, 90 paratrooper divisions in a line from the Baltic coast to the Black Sea to cut off the entire front line. But this just shows you what you can do with paratroopers, especially when those paratroopers are completely unable to be pierced by the enemy. Alright, some breaking news as I'm editing this video. I realized that there are several other very small conditions that can prevent paratrooper drops, so I want to go ahead and list all of those tiny little problems right here for all of my viewers, just in case you're doing a checklist and can't figure out why your paratroopers cannot drop. Remember, you always need at least 70% air superiority in all air regions that the transport planes have to fly through. Also, if you're trying to micromanage the exact number of transports you need, the wiki says that you need 100 transport aircraft to drop 2 divisions at a time. And a final consideration is that if you have transports ordered to do air supply, they won't execute a drop order. So you need to execute your paradrop order, and then if you wish to use air supply, swap the transports over once paradropping is complete. And that about wraps it up for today. I hope this video is helpful to you as you use paratroopers to completely dominate your enemies. I had originally intended to do Victoria 3 in a video, but I decided to do this when I realized that there might be a lot of people who don't understand how to properly utilize paratroopers because of poor tooltips. I'll have more information about what I'm doing next on the community tab. Until then, though, I hope that you are having a pleasant day, and I will talk to all of you next time.